Hello, today I'm going to talk about the six most common blunders in chess. So, the examples and the ideas that I'm about to show you are so common that even grandmasters sometimes make these blunders and slip up because our brains are just not wired to see these things. So, the first one I want to show you is quiet moves. Our brains love checks, captures, and threats. That's what we're trained to look for. That's what we're trained to see as chess players. But there are some times when playing a quiet move is better. And those can be really, really hard for us to see. And we often miss those um, a ton. So here in this position, so many people would play rook f2 check and then say, okay, now I have this discovered check. Now, maybe I'll go over here or something. But then rook takes d4 is a big problem because they're getting rid of the piece that's checking white, and black just has nothing else. There's no attack anymore. So all the way in this position, it's very crucial that black is patient and plays a quiet move, rook to d2. So the reason this works because we're quietly sneaking over here because this rook is covering the second rank. This rook is going to try to cover the first rank and checkmate. And there's actually really nothing that white can do to stop this idea. We are going to play rook h1 checkmate very, very soon. And if white tries to play something like rook e2, that doesn't do a great job of stopping us because we can give a few checks. And at the end of the day, this is checkmate. So these quiet moves, we really, really, really struggle to see oftentimes. Just rook d2 with a simple idea of I'm going to ladder mate you. But this is the kind of move that we miss all the time. Grandmasters and anything in between. Beginners, it's just everyone struggles to find quiet moves. So the next thing I'm going to show is in-between moves. In-between moves are also kind of a struggle. A lot of times, if they're checks, captures, and threats, sometimes we can see them, but sometimes they're just so counterintuitive that we don't even um, think about them at all. So here, for example, a move like Queen G5 check, attacking this weak king, is a very natural move, but it actually draws on the spot. It's just going to be a perpetual check. There's really nothing to do here to get out of it or to improve because the rooks are going to get traded, and then it's just a draw. So in the starting position, though, instead of just looking for that check right away, we have to pay attention to the in-between moves, and we can play queen to g4 check. Now, what this does is it forks the king and the queen. And if the queen takes our queen, we don't take back right away. This is what I was talking about with the in-between moves. We often miss these, where instead of taking back, we can play rook takes e8 check. And once the king moves, we can take this queen. So this is an example of a position where the in-between move, like, you can kind of see it, like you understand that you can take here in between, but you don't understand how to apply it, or you just forget about it. And that kind of thing happens a lot, and it can really be devastating. So queen g4 here is just completely winning because either the king moves and we take their queen, or they take our queen and we just go up a full rook. So paying attention to the in-between moves and applying them. So understanding that we have this in-between move, rook takes e8 check, but understanding that we can distract the defender of that by playing queen g4 first is really the idea that a lot of us would miss in a situation like this. So quiet moves and in-between moves are very difficult to see. The next one is backwards moves. Specifically, backwards knight moves are terrible. We humans, just in general, are atrocious at finding backwards knight moves. We just don't think about it. We don't think about going backwards. We always think about going forwards. So in this position, this was a game between two very strong grandmasters. like 2,700, and black is just winning here because black just has rook d1 check, the king goes to h2, and it's important to throw this check in because now black plays knight to d8. And now we're attacking this rook, and it's trapped. It has nowhere to go. If it goes to b8, this is why we wanted the king on h2. We've got bishop c7 check, forking the king and the rook and winning the game. And if the rook goes, for example, to e7, king f8, just traps that rook right there, and there's not much else. Our rook covers d7, so this rook is just trapped after knight to d8, and this is something that Super Grandmaster missed because it's just a backwards knight move. We don't think about that. We think about going forward. We think about attacking things, and usually that means going forward, but we can actually attack things going backwards in some situations, and it's something that we often miss. So backwards moves are very, very, big blunder. A lot of times, instead of a move like knight d8, again, we would attack things. We would maybe take or do some sort of capture. But it's sometimes best to play a backwards move. Another idea that people really struggle with is forward defense. Usually when we're defending, we have this image in our head of like curling up in a ball and staying really tight and bringing pieces close to our king to try to protect. But sometimes going forward and being aggressive is the best way to defend. So in this position, our king is in very hot water. Rook to h3 is threatening checkmate in one move, so we have to be very urgent. Here, in the game, black took on g7 and the game ended in a draw. But instead of taking g7, black has the incredible forward defense, queen takes c3. This is on the other side of the board. This is just a generally very, very difficult move to see because we're kind of creating our own threats, right? We're bringing the queen closer to the king, further up the board, when our king is in such dire straits. So the reason this works is because we stop rook to h3. If rook h3, we can just take it, and then we take on g7, and our king will be safe on g8, and we're just up a ton of material. Our king is actually in no danger at all. So if instead b takes c3, now we have bishop to a3 check, the king slides over, and then rook to d1 mates. So very, very nice checkmate. So white's best move is to take with a rook, but even here we're doing very well because we were up a queen for a knight. We just traded a queen for a knight, so now it's equal, and we can take this bishop, we go up a piece, and we're well on our way to winning the game. Because, again, our king will be quite safe here on g8. We don't really have to worry about our king anymore, and we have enough material to win the game. So this idea of going forward and being aggressive when we're defending is something that we often miss. Now, this next one is horizontal moves. In this game, this is also a game between super grandmasters, and here, white throws in, sorry. Now, another thing we struggle with is horizontal moves. We see the different areas of the board. We see like the king side, we see the center, we see the queen side, but their interaction between each other is kind of where we lack. So in this position, this is between two super grandmasters. Black plays queen h2 check. The king goes to f1, and here black just repeated, and the game was a draw. But in this position here, black has a winning idea that he just completely missed because it's a horizontal move, and it uses the horizontal skewer of this queen and the bishop. Now, this is also combining a different tactic because if the knight were to take it, queen h1 is checkmate. But, super grandmasters probably see that. But if the queen moves anywhere, you just take this bishop and you're up a piece. It's that simple. And if they try to block it with a move like f5, we can just play rook takes f5. And this is, again, really nasty because this knight can't move. If the knight moves, it's just checkmate. So rook takes f5 is really a nice idea. So if we go back here, just rook to h5, simply winning the game was just totally missed because this horizontal skewer is something we don't see that often. And kind of combining the different sides of the board, again, the king side, the center, and the queen side is very difficult for us. So this is a type of a blunder, a type of move that we miss um, a lot of the time simply because we're not good at combining those different sides of the board together. So a similar idea to this is switching flanks. So going from one side of the board to the next. So this was another game by another two super grandmasters, and this was a very, very crazy position. Black plays queen a3, and then white plays e5 here. Now in this position, black just took on e5, and it's just a very complicated position. But instead of taking on e5, black has a better move. Black can play the really nasty idea, knight takes h2. Now again, this is a really hard move to see and think about simply because you're switching flanks from the queen side to the king side. So after the king takes, we play c4. And this is the idea. We're getting this bishop out of the way so the queen can go all the way over to the king side. And this idea of going from one side to the other, we often struggle with. So after c4 and the bishop takes, now white is in big trouble. The knight comes in, and then the queen comes in, and queen h2 is very, very difficult to stop. So this whole idea of switching from one side of the board to the next is very, very hard for us. We really struggle with that. And it's similar to the horizontal moves, right? We don't really see going horizontally, especially if we're attacking. We want to see forwards, right? We want to go towards that king. We don't really look to the side at all. So similar to that, using ideas from both sides of the board, we don't really, like, the ideas on both sides of the board don't really connect oftentimes. Oftentimes we like do something on one side of the board, like we expand or we push our pawns, and on the other side of the board, we stay solid. We never really combine those different ideas of queen side and king side together. So that's why a move like knight takes h2 is very difficult to see. Because all of a sudden, after c4, this queen is coming all the way across the board to aid in the attack against the king. And types of blunders in chess, we just are really bad at seeing these moves as humans, and even super grandmasters make these mistakes, so of course beginners make them all the time. So quiet moves, in between moves, backwards moves, forward defense, horizontal moves, and switching flanks are some ideas and concepts that we really, really struggle with. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.